Screech by Taran NCT on AO3. Episode 35, Chapter 36. When Izuku opened his eyes, he immediately knew his wing had finished regrowing. It was only 2 a.m. and he was wide awake. With a near-manic grin, Izuku jumped out of bed and quickly spread his wings, paying careful attention to the newly regrown left one. It looked the same as it had before it had gotten ripped off, which was a little bit annoying, since Izuku had been hoping it'd be his full adult feathers. But at the same time, he was glad it was the same as his others. He didn't want to have mismatching wings. He opened the patio door and quickly flew onto the roof. He wasn't able to fly very far for very long, but he wanted to start exercising his wing now. Izuku started flapping his wing, fast and hard enough just to get the tiny bit of lift, but not enough to actually take off. He would wait for training at school to do some flying. His wing wouldn't be able to support him for long now, and if he pushed himself too soon, he'll sprain it and cause the wing to retract again for another few days. Izuku wasn't paying attention to how long he remained on the roof, but he could see the rays of sunshine starting to peek over the horizon by the time he heard some of his classmates moving around in the dorms below. Izuku quickly hopped back down to his room and started getting ready for school. Just as he was about to open the door to walk out, a sudden mischievous thought struck him, and he untied his tie, untucked his shirt, and messed up his hair. He wasn't gonna tell anyone that his wing had grown back. Not just yet. He wanted to see how long it would take anyone to realize that he was only acting sleepy and lethargic. Izuku was sure his dad would see through the act within a minute. Same with Pa. But what about Hitoshi and Dinky? The rest of the class? Izuku suppressed a giggle as he opened the door and went downstairs for breakfast. Shouta walked into the classroom and automatically glanced at his kids. He couldn't help it. He was their dad. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Hitoshi had his head on his hands, dark circles under his eyes showing just how little sleep he got the night before, but still paying attention to his surroundings and ready for the day's lesson to begin. Izuku, however, was a different story. On the surface, Izuku looked no different from his past few weeks, slumped in his seat, eyes half closed, hair and clothes rumpled, but he was missing the dark circles under his eyes that had been present for the past few weeks, and there was a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Shouta quickly ducked into his capture scarf to hide his grin. Izuku was back to normal. "Glad to have you back," Shouta whispered, quiet enough to where only Izuku and maybe Jiro would have heard him. Izuku gave him a subtle wink, and Shouta got on with the day's activity. "Alright, Helligans. Today we're going to have a special presentation. You're going to learn about work studies. And to explain what they are and why they are important, you'll be hearing from a few third-year students. But that won't be until after lunch. For now, try to keep a dull roar. I'm taking a nap." Dinky was confused. That's not really something new, honestly, but today was really making him second-guess himself. Dinky watched as Izuku had slumped into the classroom that morning. He had looked more alert despite appearing exactly the same he had for the past month. He had been insisting that Dinky not wait for him in the mornings, since he had either been late or just barely on time all month. So Dinky was already in class when Izuku showed up. And as Izuku sat down for class, Dinky kept his eyes on Izuku, checking for more signs that Izuku might be back to normal. He had almost convinced that Izuku was back to being himself again. But as soon as Aizawa-sensei flopped back into his sleeping bag, Sho made a comment about Izuku only pretending to still be exhausted. Izuku didn't say anything to refute him. The rest of the class was calling Shoto a conspiracy theorist, and no one thought he was right. But was he? Denki wasn't sure. He wanted to say that Izuku was himself again, but he really was acting the same as he had the past month. Denki wanted to know. He really did. But if Izu was doing this as some sort of logical ruse, then he didn't want to mess it up. Denki didn't want to risk Jiro hearing him ask Izuku if he was okay, so he decided to wait either for lunch or for her to go to the restroom, whichever came first. Luckily, during a break in the modern lit, she got up and left the classroom. Denki glanced at his boyfriend and whispered, "Izu." Izuku slowly turned his head over to Denki and gave him a soft smile. "Shoto's right, isn't he? You're all better?" That soft smile of his turned sharp for just a second, and he winked at Denki. Denki was just barely able to hold back a giggle at that. "You're trolling the class?" He had to confirm, and got the slightest and most subtle nod from Izuku. Okay. Denki turned his attention back to his classwork. If Izuku wanted to troll the class, well, what kind of a boyfriend would he be if he didn't help him? Shouta was slowly losing his mind, and Izuku was very silently and subtly causing it. Hitoshi was sure Denki was in on it too, and he was having the time of his life. Hitoshi didn't know how many of the class was actually in on the ruse, or if they truly thought Shouta was just seeing connections that weren't there. But Shoto's hair was an absolute mess from how many times he'd run his hands through it in frustration. "I know you're messing with us, you little shit. You're finally starting to become a troll like your brother." Hitoshi hissed out at Izuku, manic look in his eyes. "Okay, yikes, dude. Give my Izuku a break. Can't you see he's still out of it?" Denki defended Izuku, pulling him close protectively. "Why can't you see that he's just faking it?" Shoto shrieked as he pulled at his hair. "Alright, Shoto, I'm gonna need you to calm down. You're getting too overworked. You look like you're steaming," Hitoshi said, gesturing to the steam coming off of Shoto's head. "Take a deep breath for me, yeah?" Shoto glared at Hitoshi, and then closed his eyes and did as asked, cutting off the steam and getting his quirk back under control. "Okay, I'm good. I'm fine. It's all okay." If Hitoshi hadn't seen it, he never would have believed it, but Izuku plainly smirked at Shoto and winked at him. "Son of a bit!" Izuku could feel Shoto glaring at him, but he didn't care. Togata Mirio had challenged the entire class to a match, and Izuku wanted to know what made him so special, why he was the top of the big three. He had seen Akajimi Takara working as Sun Eater before with Bakugou, so he knows why he was there. And Riku was a badass, so if she was hosting Hado, then she'd be good too. But Togata was a mystery. Sir Nida was more investigative and analytics. He wasn't really in the front lines. So when the rest of the class went into the locker rooms to change, Izuku gave Dad a glance and got a nerd in return. Izuku would be able to participate if he wanted to, and he very much wanted to. Izuku was having a heck of a time ignoring Shoto's constant glares, though. He had almost cracked and started laughing so many times. He was surprised the majority of the class hadn't figured it out yet. Just as Izuku finished dressing in the locker room, Shoto slid next to him. "How much longer are you going to keep this act up?" Izuku let out a long, drawn-out sigh. "I don't know what you're talking about, Shoto." Izuku almost snorted when he heard Shoto growl. "Hey, Sho, can you carry me to the gym?" Shoto narrowed his eyes at Izuku, clearly looking for the trick, but then sighed and let Izuku climb on his back. "Thank you." Izuku let his eyes drift close, still pretending to be exhausted. But as they got closer to the gym, he gave Shoto a little hug. "I know I'm being annoying today. Sorry, I'll make it up to you, I promise." Shoto's steps faltered as he snapped his head around to look at him. Izuku gave him a little smirk. "No one will believe you, though." Izuku let out a chirp of surprise as Shoto dropped him and stomped off. Dusting himself off, Izuku got up and slowly wandered to the gym where everyone else was listening to Togata explain that he was going to fight them all, 15 against 1. Sarah raised his hand and then smiled a lazy smile. 14, actually. Our resident owl is recovering from an injury." Izuku waved sheepishly at Togata, and then moved to stand near his dad. The other students all got into a rough formation, the same one they had started the provisional license with, and all of a sudden, Togoda's clothes fell off and he disappeared? Seconds later, he reappeared with a punch to Koda's gut before disappearing once again. It only took 2 more times for Izuku to realize what he was doing, and when he did, he reached out for his dad's sleeve and gave a gentle tug. "You can have a turn once everyone else is done," Dad said, ruffling Izuku's hair. "Let him have his fun first." Izuku nodded and leaned against his dad's side as he watched the third-year student take down every single one of his classmates. I thought that would take longer," Izuku murmured. "You ready for your turn, Zu?" Dad asked, and Izuku hooted eagerly. "So, can any of you tell me what I have that you all don't?" Togoda asked cheerfully, as he pulled his clothes back on. "A lack of modesty," Hitoshi suggested, causing a few to laugh. "A good guess, but no." Togoda laughed along the rest. "Experience. Can anyone tell me what my quirk is?" "Togoda." Dad interrupted him. "Yes, sensei." "You have one more challenger." Izuku stepped forward with a bit of an excited bounce in his step. "I knew it! See? I called it! I fucking called it!" Shouta jumped up and started pointing at Izuku with his manic grin again. "Yes, that reminds me. Izuku, we all realized you were playing a logical ruse?" Dad asked. Izuku unfurled his wings and gave a gentle lap. "Shouta and Denki for sure. I'm not sure if Hitoshi realized before I teased Shouta while Toshi was looking, though." Izuku shrugged and flapped his wings again. "Can I fight him now?" "Sure. Try not to show off too much, kid." Izuku flapped his wing hard enough to get some lift and glided to the middle of the gym, where the rest of the students were slowly getting to their feet and heading to the sidelines. "Hellions, I want you to pay attention to this match," his dad called out to the rest. "Togoda pointed out that he had more experience than the lot of you, and that was the main reason for your defeat. What do you think will happen when someone with even more experience goes up against him?" Haido tilted her head. "But, Sensei, everyone keeps saying that Mirio is almost good enough to be a full pro now." Shouta hummed in amusement. "We had to talk the commission out of giving Izuku his full license. So while he's officially only a provisional hero, Screech is an unofficial underground pro hero already." Shouta smirked then. "Izuku, show them why I have never been able to catch you." Izuku nodded and chirped. "I'm ready when you are, senpai." Togoda grinned wildly at Izuku and then disappeared. Izuku stepped to the left when Togoda reappeared in front of him. Izuku surprised him with a leg sweep that could have knocked him down if he hadn't activated his quirk again and vanished back into the ground. Izuku gave another flap of his wing and jumped nearly 10 meters away, giggling when Toga reappeared, looking around and wondering why Izuku wasn't where he was supposed to be. "Senpai, I'm over here!" Izuku called out with a grin. Togoda blinked at him before once again disappearing into the ground, and Izuku, still in a playful mood from the start of the day, flapped his wings and moved to another part of the gym. "Senpai!" Izuku called out to Togoda when he once again looked around for Izuku, wondering where he went. "What are you doing over there?" "How did he?" Togoda whispered before shaking his head. "Doesn't matter." He disappeared back into the ground. This time, instead of flying to a remote part of the gym, Izuku got into a fighting stance and started a kick before Togoda had even appeared. Izuku had timed his kick perfectly, and as soon as his kick was at the strongest point, Togoda appeared in front of him and took the kick to the stomach, falling instantly. "Vengeance for my classmates," Izuku chirped. Togoda coughed and then started laughing. "Whoa, that was something else." Izuku gathered up Togoda's clothes and then brought them to him. "Thanks." With another flap of his wings, Izuku glided back over to the rest of the class, putting them wings away and sliding under Dinky's arm. "You done trolling the class?" Dinky asked as he kissed the top of Izuku's head. Izuku just nodded. Shouta ducked his face into his scarf as Togoda reached the front of the classroom. "Well, as I was going to ask before my final match, who can tell me what my quirk is?" Kirishima raised his hand. "It's some kind of teleportation quirk, isn't it?" Nope, my quirk is called permeation. Izuku wasn't paying attention to the explanation of how Togeda's quirk worked. He had figured it out himself within a few minutes of his initial class battle. And besides, Dinky was playing with his hair in the way that he knew Izuku loved. Izu. Hitoshi nudged him slightly, and Izuku jolted his head up. I'm here! He exclaimed, embarrassingly loud, much to the amusement of everyone. Dad simply raised an eyebrow at him and asked, Can you share with the class how you figured out Togeda's quirk? Oh, that's easy. I could hear him under the ground. He replied simply with a shrug. His breathing stopped, and he only started to just fall, but his heartbeat kept going so I could track him. That's when he started, rising. Then there was a slight sound of displacement? I don't know, but it's similar to the sound a fish makes when they're underwater. As soon as he was back above ground, his breathing started up again. I also noticed that before he disappeared, he looked around to find his next target. All of that led me to the assumption he can't hear, see, breathe, anything while his quirk is activated. How long did it take you to figure that out? Dad asked. Grin hidden, but Izuku could hear it in his voice. By the time he took down Shoji? Yeah, he got Koda and I heard his heartbeat move. Then, when he dropped back into the ground after Soto, I had seen him disappear, so when he took down Shoji, I had it figured out. That was less than 30 seconds, Keigo. I should have whispered on the other side of the group. Izuku nodded with a smile. Yeah, like Senpai said, experience is a big deal. I started out as Screech when I was 12, so I've gone up against a few different quirks. At least this time he wasn't trying to kill anyone, and I had time to observe. Hey, Dad, Izuku asked as the whole family, including Keigo, were sitting at the dinner that night. Shouta just grunted to show he heard. You do work studies, right? I know you said that not everyone's mentor for their internships would be able to host for work studies. Shouta paused with his chopsticks halfway in his mouth, and then put them back down. Izuku, your wings just grew back. And you said before that they won't be strong enough for you to be back to normal for a few weeks. Don't you think you should take the next few weeks to strengthen your wings and get back into the swing of things? Izuku pouted. But I wanted to do a work study. Shouta shook his head. Not this time, Izu. Maybe next time. Izuku's pout turned into a scowl. I might have the perfect solution. Keigo hedged, causing everyone to look at him. So, when I had Tokoyami for that week, I brought up the idea of maybe trying to fly with him. We decided to work on that during the work studies. How about it, baby bird? You want to come with me and see if we could get him to fly? Your quirk analysis could help making this a lot easier. And when I'm teaching him and Dark Shower how to move to fly, that could help you in exercising your wings. Izuku's face lit up, and he turned back to Shouta. Can I do that? Then the next time work studies come around, I'll go back to you. Shouta looked back and forth between Izuku and Keigo, before sighing and taking a bite of food. Sure. Keigo, don't let him do anything too strenuous. Alright, interesting. This one was very nice. I do love seeing, obviously, overpowered Izuku. As I said, I have a fanfiction where I'm having him be a little bit overpowered. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, hey, would he be able to beat, Togeda? And I was like, okay, let's say, hypothetically speaking, there is literally no sound coming out of Togeda when he's underground, when he is, has his quirk activated, right? How would Izuku be able to track him, right? How would Izuku be able to beat him? And my thought immediately went to the fact that in a certain fanfiction of mine where Izuku's OP, no matter what you fucking do, no matter even if you have a quirk that hides your fucking presence, in the sense of hides your sounds, hides, your shadow, like hides the fact that you are there, right? Hides any noises that you make, anything like that, right? Izuku would be able to track you down because of one simple thing. His quirk is an empath quirk. Therefore, as long as you're feeling something emotional based, Izuku will be able to know your exact location because he'll feel the presence of an emotion in someone around him. So he will always know when there's people around him. He will always know when there's someone around him. Also, I'm a meanie pants. So let's just say, imagine Izuku like in a very big crowded place and like a villain attack happens and he's just overshadowed with the emotions of everybody around him with fear, and all he could think about is the fear of other people to the point where he starts being scared himself. And you know, I'm evil, as we have accomplished already. But this talking about this chapter and all, I think it was a really interesting thing to have his heart, because that's something that I didn't think. Does his heartbeat still sound? Right? Can we still hear his heartbeat? Right? Does his heart still beat during permeation? Is that a thing? Does that still happen? When he deactivates it and he jumbles all the way up, is there a noise being heard? And all of this, obviously, in this fanfiction specifically, that's what happened. Also, I saw someone in my comments say that what if Bakugou becomes a Nomu? And okay. I also think I saw the author mention the fact that we don't get to, that from what they remember, we don't get to see the villains afterwards. So it's up to our interpretation what happens. At least with, I think, Dabi, Toga, and all of them. And if so, I would like to think that they all lived happy lives. The end, you know? Because I want that for them. I need that for them. They need that. They want that. In fact, actually, no. So, Dabi, broke free, obviously, right? Duh. I mean, he's living a wonderful life. And then somehow, some way, shape, or form, he starts dating Hawks, because I'm a huge shipper of Hot Wings. Hot Wings is one of my favorite ships, and it's also one of my favorite ship names. Hot Wings. Obviously, you can't just search up Hot Wings and get the ship that you want, because you're just gonna see a bunch of fucking Hot Wings. But in the sense of when you're, you know, talking to someone else and you're talking about ships, and you're like, oh yeah, I love the ship Hot Wings. Under context, it is an amazing fanfiction name, ship name. There's some ship names where I absolutely love, like for example, Hot Wings. Those are one of the ship names where it does not at all take what the actual characters' names are, right? And I'm not talking about, like, for example, Izuku's, all his fucking, all of his ships and all of his ship names have Deku in it. Except his ship with Uraraka. It's Izuchaku? Ochaku Izu? Something like that. It has to do with Izuku. That was, again, I don't really like that ship because they diminish they diminish Uraraka. Like, come on, you can't do that. You can't diminish her, okay? You can't just turn into, you know, a fucking romance. Also, I very much just enjoy Uraraka with Toga a whole lot more better. That dynamic is super interesting. Considering not Toga's. Well, yeah, Toga's development and Toga's whole arc clashing with Uraraka's arc. It mashes together and it blends into a harmonious thing. Same with Hawks and Dabi. It blends. I love the dynamic. Will it ever become canon? Probably not, right? But I hate that nowadays people are like, oh, you ship that? You do realize that's never gonna become canon, right? Yeah. I'm very much aware that Hot Wings is not gonna become canon. Like, look, people being like, oh, you can't ship this because it's never gonna become canon, or why do you ship that? That's not canon. The whole point of shipping is the fact that you're shipping things because, shipping people because you like their dynamic, as long as it's not a pro ship, but you like their dynamic. For example, Hot Wings is a very interesting dynamic that would bring a lot to the story. Eraser Mike is canon, period, okay? You cannot tell me otherwise. Okay, I know it's probably never gonna quote-unquote become canon, but look at the fucking foundations of it already. It could very much become canon, and it's one of those where it's like, oh yes, the possibility of this one becoming canon is high than others. Like, fucking, what's it called? What's a weird ship? Bakugou and, Denki. Do I think that shit's ever gonna become canon? Fuck no. Do I think it's a very interesting and very enlightening dynamic? Yes. Do I think Toga and Uraraka will ever become canon, or they have a high probability of becoming canon? Probably not, because people hate gay people. I'm joking. Oh, I'm not joking. That homophobia is very much a real thing, unfortunately. But look, what I mean is, like, do I think it's gonna become canon? No, but the possibility of it becoming canon is high, right? Just because something isn't canon or can't become canon doesn't mean it's an interesting ship, not an interesting ship. I mean, think about it. There is one ship where, like, these characters have never seen an on-screen interaction, but I would die to see a fanfiction of this, which is, okay, hear me out. Hear me out. Fucking hear me out, okay? You can't back out. You gotta hear me out, alright? You hearing? Okay. Oh, what's that character's name again? Fuck. Tokoyami and Ayomama. Hear me out. Hear me out. Bird-like shiny thing. Period. I'm not joking. That is my whole argument. Thank you for coming to my tech talk. Okay, but things like that, that is a ship based on absolutely nothing except the fact that bird-like shiny thing, hee hee ha ha, right? I find that ship very interesting, and I would like to see a dynamic and see how people, portray it and stuff, right? Shindeku is another dynamic where I fucking love. BKDK is another dynamic that I fucking love. Totodeku is a classic. But specifically, Bakugou and Shindeku. I'm leaning more towards Shindeku because I really, really like Shindeku right now, but, I used to be a huge BKDK shipper. Obviously now my favorite Deku ship is Shindeku just because of the dynamic of that. I mean, think about it. Someone who has been bullied all their life for their quirk, that's villainous, meets up with someone who now, Izuku has, the Izuku now of the present has a quirk, right? And imagine even past season 6, where Hitoshi's like, oh shit, you were quirkless. Or even, quirkless Izuku with Hitoshi. It is interesting dynamics that I absolutely love to see so much. Like, those type of dynamics are dynamics that I die for. Because I find it interesting. Just because something isn't fucking canon doesn't mean that, or it can't be canon, doesn't mean that it's not an interesting ship. Right? Do I think Shindeku will ever become canon? Fuck no. That shit's never becoming canon. Fucking Shinsou has more probability of getting with Monoma than with Izuku, which, by the way, I don't really like the Shinsou x Monoma. I'm not saying it's a shitty ship. If you like the ship, you like the ship. Do you, as long as it's not illegal or a pro ship. But personally, I don't see it. That, and I don't really like Monoma. I have a love-hate relationship with Monoma, okay? I hate and love him at the same time. But I went on a long fucking tangent. I'm going back into topic. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.